the first thing that you guys want to do is create a new repository on GitHub. So you would just go to new. Let me blow this up a little bit here. You can call it whatever you want. My GitHub repo. Okay, you can put a description. We're going to keep these things public. And you can initialize it with a README, but we're not going to do that because we're going to do this from like a Rails app that we create, right? So I'm going to put create repository. And then we've got like these little crazy instructions over here. So it's telling us that we can create a new repository on the command line, or we can push an existing repo from the command line. All right, to create a new repo, we follow these steps, but if we create a new Rails app, Rails already initializes the folder as a Git repository. So it's gonna have all the stuff that it needs. So with the new repo, all we have to do is this guy right here. So if we were to create a new a new Rails app, let's go to my home directory, Rails new test, and this is gonna take a little while. All right, Rails new tests project. So it's gonna take a little while to do its thing, blah, blah, blah. Webpacker now takes forever to install. But once that's all done, all we're gonna do is do this git remote add origin, blah, 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 and then git push origin master. Where did this guy? What's up? So to this page, what I did was, and let me copy this here. So from your home directory over here, there's a repository new. I created a new repository by doing that, giving it a name, and just clicking on create repository down here. Okay, so again, from the main GitHub page, you just click on new here, or you go to your repositories here also. If you click on your repositories, you can click on new here also. All right, and this is the one that we just created, my GitHub repo. It doesn't know what kind of language it is or anything because we haven't done anything with it yet. So if we jump back in, we're still installing Nokogiri. We're gonna be here all day. You know what I'm gonna do? I'm gonna Control C this. And we're just gonna jump in there. Should already be a Git repo. So cd test project, git status. All right, cool. So once we're in there, we created this repo. If we open up our code editor from in here, see how all these things are green in VS Code? That means that these are all the changes that we've had that we haven't committed yet to GitHub. All right. Once we're in GitHub, or once we're in our repo and we do git status, we can see all the things that haven't been staged yet to be committed. So there's a multi-step process to commit things and to save them as a permanent record. The first thing we want to do is we want to add whatever files we want to add from, or folders from our project. So let's say I only wanted to add the vendor folder for whatever reason, because I want to create like a different commit for, like, let's say I worked on 3 different things. I worked on feature 1, feature 2, feature 3, but feature 1 only had a couple of files inside of it. I would just add those files from feature 1. In our case, we would do git add vendor. Okay, now if I do git status, you would see that changes to be committed, this whole new vendor.keep, right? And if we go over here, here's our vendor file, vendor.keep. So now the next step would be to just commit that one particular file, git commit -m. The vendor feature, we're gonna call it. Okay, so now if we come back over here, you're gonna see that this guy's now white instead of green, and this guy's in there. So that's been committed. So remember, it's a 2-step process. The first thing is the thing that you wanna add, and we can do individual files like I just did. Normally we've been doing git add and the period, just dot, okay? And all that does is it adds everything in that directory. But we can actually just specify things individually. So we can specify the entire app folder, for instance, git add app, and this will add everything in the app folder to our commit. So now we can commit added app folder. All right, and now this is a second commit, and you can see we've created all these things in GitHub, blah, blah, blah. And from here, if we come back to the folder, you will see that the app is now white and all the other folders here are green, meaning that we've made some changes, or that we've committed whatever changes we made to the app folder, and that's all up to date. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna copy, I'm circling back now, I'm gonna copy the git remote add origin that we got from when we created a new repository. And then the git push -u, this -u, we only got to run it the first time that we're adding this repo to the remote, right? So we're going to say git push -u origin master. After this, we can just do git push origin, whatever the branch name is. All right, so now we've added these things, all these different files. If we come back and we refresh this, so we got my GitHub repo, and it's saying that it's JavaScript because I don't know why, but here's the stuff that we committed. And as you can see, we didn't commit everything inside of our project. We just committed, or we only added those couple of things that we staged and then committed. All right, so now let's say I want to stage the rest of the changes. This time I'm going to use git add dot. We're all familiar with that. We've been doing that the entire time. So we're going to do git add dot. And now if I do git status is a great command too. It shows you everything in green that we're going to be adding. So see it says new file, new file, new file. All right. And now we can do git commit -m added the rest of the project. Any questions on that so far? Yeah, so if it hasn't been committed yet, you can. Once it's been committed, it's a little more difficult. You can revert a commit, or you can just go back, or you can make the changes again. But if it's just staged, you can unstage something. And let's make a change somewhere. Let's go to the app controllers, the application controller, and let's just create some method like def test method. And now if I run git status again, you guys are going to see that the application controller has some changes that I've made. If I do git add app controllers application controller, and I run git status again, it tells you your branch is ahead of origin master by 1 commit. Use git push to publish your local commits, and that would publish them to the master branch, which we're going to talk about in a minute, because we don't want to, when we start working together, we don't want to push things to master ever. Only bosses push to master. Is that right? So use git restore stage file name to unstage it. So you would do git restore, whatever the name of the file was, and it'll remove it. So it was git restore staged app controllers application controller. And now if I do git status again, you're gonna see it's back to being unstaged. Cool. Now, when we're working collaboratively as a team, the only thing we ever want to have in the master branch is code that works. When you guys start working on your own features or on your own version of the project, what you're going to do is you're going to git checkout -b for new branch, and you're going to give it whatever the name of the branch is. It's fine to just give it the branch your name. Usually what we do though is we give it a feature name, so whatever feature we're working on. Since it's smaller teams of 2 or 3 right now, it's probably just fine giving it a name. In our case, we'll do here Yoan, and we're going to add and changed app controller. And now we're going to git push origin, Yoan. Okay, and now this pushes this new branch up with the changes that were made to GitHub. And if we come back over here, we refresh this page, and we look at branch, we have 2 branches, the master branch and the Yoan branch. All right, when you guys are working together, one of the things that I highly recommend that you do is you go into your settings, you go into branches. Is it branches? Yeah, then branch protection rules, and then we're gonna click on add rule. Don't have to do this, highly recommend doing it. If you have issues with this, I will help you solving these issues, but this will prevent you guys from accidentally pushing stuff up to master that you didn't mean to push up to master. So, branch name, we're gonna put master. And I would say require pull request reviews before merging. So somebody else needs to look at your code and say, okay, this merge request is approved. And include administrator, so even if you created that branch, your teammate is gonna have to approve that pull request for you also, okay? And then you just hit create, and now, this is one of those things that Evans was just talking about, adding our password because of session jacking, whatever it's called. Cool, so branch protection rule created. That means that I can't push to master anymore. So for me to push to master, I'm gonna have to get approval from somebody else. Since I'm the only one on here, I probably still could. But now that we have that done, the workflow for GitHub, the way that we wanna make this work every time that we make changes, you're gonna commit your changes, you're gonna push them up to your branch, okay? Then, once you've pushed up your changes and they're safe on GitHub, you're gonna, from your branch, you're gonna switch over to the master branch, and you're gonna git pull, so you get all the changes that are currently on the master branch, okay? Then you're gonna merge master into your branch, so into your change that you've created, so that way you're gonna have whatever master had, plus your stuff combined, and then you can go back into GitHub to create a pull request saying, hey, I've got all your latest changes, I've merged them into mine, there was no issues, let me push all these changes back up to master now with my changes, and if there are no problems, then we'll commit them all, and then we'll have a brand new master branch. How do we feel about that so far? Any questions? Which part? So I created this branch right now called Yoan, right? I made some changes to it, okay? And let's say I made more changes to it. We're gonna go back over here and whatever. We have another method, and it's called method name, and then I save it, and then I come back into my terminal. You guys see this okay? Then I do git add for my changes, git commit, method name. Okay, so I changed one file, I added 5 things. This just tells you what we did. All right, so I'm gonna push my changes to my branch called Yoan up on GitHub. So I'm gonna do git push origin Yoan. My changes are pushed up to GitHub. What I just did should be on my branch, yep. Okay, so Yoan less than a minute ago. You say it says compare and pull request. We're not gonna do that just yet. If we look at the branches, we've got the Yoan branch over here with all the other stuff. The rest of the Rails application is in here, okay? So then what I wanna do from the Yoan branch now, in case anybody else made changes to master, all right? In this case, we haven't. It's just been me working up here. I'm gonna go git checkout master, okay? Now it says your branch is ahead of origin master by 1 commit. You skip push to publish your local commits. Cool, so that means it's telling me that right now I'm ahead of master, but if this wasn't the case, what I would do is I would do git pull origin master to get all the changes that exist on master. Okay, it'll be up to date. And then from here, I would do git check out my branch name now, Yoan, and then git merge master. So now I'm merging whatever's on the master branch over into my branch. Okay, it says already up to date, gravy. All right, so now that I know that my master branch or the master branch and my local branch are merged and there were no issues, I can now come in, and if there were issues, we would have solved them. If not, we would have to do another git add dot. Like if it wasn't already up to date, if I did get some changes, we would just do git add, git commit, git push again to my branch. Okay, once we're in here, now we're gonna do a compare and pull request. It's telling me, okay, able to merge. That means there were no conflicts, everything's gravy. And we create a pull request. So now a review is required. At least one approving review is required by reviewers with write access. So I couldn't even merge it because nobody reviewed it. And since I'm the only person on this on this repo, I don't think I can review it. So I might have to add a new contributor or take off that blocking that I created. So what I'm gonna do is, that's what I was gonna say. I'm gonna add Andrew as a collaborator. Is this it? Why can't I add you as a collaborator?
At the bottom of the last page.
Ah, there we go. Thank you. Andrew, what's your Okay, so I invited Andrew. He's gonna review this merge and then he's gonna make the changes from his end. So you see I created the changes, I opened up a pull request, but it didn't let me merge the branches because my teammate now needs to look to make sure that he understands what I wrote, that I'm not doing anything crazy, I'm blowing up the repo, and that there are no merge conflicts. Mm-hmm.
I created a project folder on my desktop. Is there a way to do it that's a link into it?
Yeah, so that was the first step that we did when we created a new repository on GitHub. Like you already have a repo on your desktop, right?
Yeah.
So from GitHub, if I go to just github.com, the very first thing you're gonna see on the left-hand side is right here is new, right? So you hit the new button, you create a new repository name, my mod2 project. You guys can name it whatever you want. You know, you could actually give it your project name. Then at the bottom, you click create repository. Okay, and then you just paste this into your terminal.
When you have the program running.
You don't have to have the program running, you just have to be in the directory of your project. Yeah.
That doesn't create a branch, right? You have to create a branch.
You still have to create a branch, you still have to do a git add, git commit, and then you can do this right here. If you don't git add, git commit, and you just try to do this and you're expecting to see it on GitHub, it's not gonna be there because you haven't made the changes. Andrew, were you able to merge me?
Sorry, I have to do some email stuff.
Oh, nice. What do you got, two-factor authentication on that?
Less of the Rails. No, that's got
All right, so any other questions about the workflow, what it involves? When Andrew signs in, I'm also gonna have him, well, he's gotta clone the repo, that might be a little too much. But that's the main thing. I would say protect your branch, git add, git commit, git push. When you actually make your changes, you wanna push your local changes up into GitHub, then you wanna switch branches, git checkout, master, then switch back, git pull. So you're gonna pull all the changes that were on master. Somebody else was working on it over the weekend or whatever. And then once you git pull, you're gonna switch back over into your branch, and you're gonna git merge master into your branch. It's kind of just a cycle of like always grabbing the latest stuff that's on master down, and then only pushing your code up and trying to merge into master once you have that. And you open up that little cycle. Does anybody have any other questions? This is going to be real short. Does Evans have anything to add to this? Seku?
Yeah, when we create a new branch, you don't need to switch to that branch, right? We go straight to the new branch, or we need to switch to the new.
When you create a new branch, so when you do like git checkout -b, you should be in that branch. Also, you could always just type in git branch to see what branch you're on. If you guys did the dot files on from the optional manual setup from day one, you will see your branch name and the directory that you're in right up here. If you guys didn't do the manual dot file setup on day one, I recommend it just because it's nice knowing which branch that you're in always. Another place that you can see where your branch is on VS Code. Down here at the bottom left, right here. That tells you what branch you're on, and if you click on it, it shows you the other branches that are on there too. So you could actually switch branches from here. I recommend doing it from the command line. I don't know if this causes any issues. I always just do it from the command line. If it doesn't, it's probably fine, but try to stick to the command line if you can to avoid issues.
If like me and my partner are working on the same file, like I remember if something gets a little screwy.
Yeah, so you guys want to try to avoid working on the same files, or if you're working on the same files, to work in completely different lines from each other. What ends up happening is you're both working in the same file, you guys push up changes. Git doesn't know which changes to keep, so then you have what's called a merge conflict. You could keep both changes. You can keep just one change and get rid of the other, or vice versa. So when that happens, VS Code is really nice about showing you what the new changes are and what the old changes are. But if you don't have VS Code and you just see like a bunch of sideways arrows and it shows you, and then like some, I don't know if it's equal signs or arrows in the other direction, that's one of the changes, and then what's below it is the other change. So you could just wipe that out with the arrows, and then keep whichever one that you guys want. Sometimes you do want to keep both changes. The thing is, what happens is when you guys both write, like let's say you made some changes on line 3 to 5, and then she made some changes on line like 1 to 3, like that 3 line is gonna clash and it's not gonna know what to do, and it's gonna say, okay, which line do you wanna keep? And that gets a little hairy because maybe you wanna keep yours and hers, but yours needs to be on 4, 5, 6 instead of 3, 4, 5. So you gotta look at it a little more closely. I recommend trying to avoid working on the same files. Like if you're working on the controllers, have her or him work on the models. If somebody's working on the models, somebody else should be working on the views. Or you could be working on different views. Hey, listen, I'm gonna be working on the views for this model only. So if you have 4 models and you wanna work on all the views for one of the models, then by all means go for it. The problem comes when you guys start trying to work on everything at once without a little bit of a game plan up front. So try to figure out, okay, you guys know, you already know model view controller paradigm, you know how that works. If you know that a model is gonna have certain things and somebody else knows that the controller is gonna have certain things, there's no reason why you can't split that kind of work up. You don't need to work on the same computer. You know, pair programming is great, absolutely. But if you guys talk about what you're gonna do, like listen, I'm gonna work on this model, you work on this model, I'm gonna work on this controller, you work on the controller, you can actually split up the work and get things done. So just consider that. Pair program every once in a while too, I definitely recommend it. When I was in Mod 2, we both worked on the same computer the entire time. So if you do, I mean, there's no harm and there's no shame in that. I understand Git is a little confusing at first, and like, how do you work on these things at the same time, like when you still kind of are trying to piece together like everything that we need to know. But it could definitely be done. Just split the responsibilities up a little bit about on what you guys are going to work on. And it doesn't even have to be model view controller. You can say, okay, I'm going to work on this part of the domain altogether. Like let's say you're doing on like doctors, patients, appointments. Say, okay, I'm going to do doctors and patients. You work on the appointments model. And that's so you guys can kind of avoid any kind of clashes. Anybody else?
Hey, I know we talk a lot about Git, but do you feel like you understand Git and GitHub as two different things? Okay. Do you understand like what Git is doing for you and why you need like GitHub?
So Git is the terminal, and GitHub is
Git is like an application that provides version control support. And then in terms of like the merge conflicts, do you know how and when that happens?
you're looking at the same file and it's two positions.
Yes, but do you feel like you have a good understanding, like the visualization of what's going on? Okay. You want to draw it out, or you want to draw it out?
Is it because you each have your own version? And so the conflict is that?
Yes. Cool. Do you mind if I just draw this out real quick? Yawn, it's fine, it's fine.
You got to do it on the.
Yeah. Hey, everybody. Hi. Come on. Oh, bless up. Okay, this is known as the awesome web app whiteboard, where I will basically use this. Oh, did you see that? I have to accept cookies. Cool. All right, so check it out. Git is just version control. So it allows you, who plays like video games? Cool, you're just basically like saving your file, right? And so if you ever like make a boo-boo, you can go back to that old version of your file. That's just what Git is. GitHub is just a website that literally you push all of your save logs and your code. That's just a website that hosts and holds all of it. That's it. And so this is basically what happens, right? You have here you are, right? This is your computer, right? I went to art school, right? Worth every penny. This is your computer, right? You're over here, you're slinging code like a boss, and then all of a sudden you're like, all right, I want to save this, so I never lose it ever. You could save a local copy, right? Hit Command S, bless up. But then what if you want to share it? That's kind of where GitHub comes in. So GitHub, I'm just gonna put GH, kind of like Grubhub, TM. Right? Like, yeah, TM. Cool. This is GitHub, the website. So this is your local code, right? You have 1,000 lines in here. Amazing. And you're like, yo, I'm gonna go upload this code. So you're gonna add, you're gonna commit, right? So what add does is it stages it, and then the commit is just like a message that you add that's attached to the save file. Because in like video games or whatever, you could see a picture like, oh my God, I'm on like chapter 2, whatever, blah, blah. But like when you're looking at code, you have no idea when you save this, what the heck you just did in this save file. So the commit message, the rule of thumb is the way the message reads is in this commit, and then blam. Added sessions and cookies, or in this commit, created authentication. In this commit, added the index page, right? That's what the commit message is. And so once you save it, you're like, cool, yo, git push origin, and then bam, push it up to the hub. So far, so good, right? Then you go to GitHub, and you look at your code, and like, wow, it's live on the internet in 3D and real D, right? Now, you have your boy, me, right? I'm a jabroni, I have no idea what I'm doing, and I'm like, great, can I look at your code? Are you going to take your code, copy and paste it into a USB file, hand it over to me, and I'm like, yo, I got this, son. It's not 1995 anymore, but no big deal. Plug it into my computer, and then drag and drop the files onto my computer. It's 2020, stop the madness, right? What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna be like, all right, cool, give me your GitHub repo link, and I'm just gonna download it. I'm just gonna pull it down. Cool? So now I've got 1,000 lines here, 1K, and I've got 1,000 lines of the same exact code. So far, so good, right?
Would you be forking that at that point, or as the jabroni, right? Or would you be cloning? Like, what would you?
Great question. Cloning is exactly that. I'm gonna make an exact copy, on my local hard drive, on my local machine. So you're obviously Studmaster 1000, right? When you pull your code, if I clone it, I'm gonna put in my terminal git clone and then your repo name, right? If I forked it, what that's going to do is it's going to take my GitHub account and it's going to essentially, on my account, Jabroni, it's gonna make a copy on the website of the code that's linked back to the original code. So if you look at any of your forks, you can see forked from. It just makes a local online copy, in which case I can then, if I wanted to, clone the fork, which is what we're doing with our labs, so that students always and after you will have access to the regular master. You're not really pushing to the master, you're pushing up and down to your fork for the lab. So when you make your pull request, it's to that fork. Does that make sense?
Yeah, so.
I see your question.
Just to like, see if I understand. So if I'm collaborating with somebody, right, I wouldn't want to fork it, I would want to just like.
Correct. If you
We're
are,
on the same team, working on the same project.
exactly, if you are working with somebody, preferably non-jabronis, then you would in fact clone it. If you are looking at somebody's library online, you're like, oh my God, that's amazing. I want a copy of it and I want to change it up a little bit. I would fork it, clone it, and then make my local changes and then use that. Forking is also sort of like the right way to do things in development because you're always giving credit back to who originally created it. You have no idea how many readmes or like projects I've made, and then I'll look at it and I'm like, oh my God, you just cloned this, pushed it, and then now you're claiming that you wrote it. And I'm like, oh my God, that's crazy. So how do you feel about cloning and forking? Yeah, good deal. So, all right, all of this aside, let's just ignore that top right corner. 1,000 lines of code, 1,000 lines of code, right? And so what Johan is saying is if you're in the doctor model, right, and I'm also in the doctor.rb model, right? I'm in the same file. And both of us are doing different things. I add a feature, and now I have 1,047 lines of code, and you have 1,033 lines of code. This 33 and this 47, different lines of code, right? You're typing on your machine, and I'm typing on my machine. Different lines of code. So far, so good. If you go first, and you're like, yo, check it out, fam. I just built this amazing feature. It's the bomb. Git add, git commit, and git push. Cool. GitHub now knows how many lines of code? 1,033, right? Remember my 47, that's on my computer. I have not pushed. If I then go, oh, hey, real quick, let me add my code with yours, I'm going to add, commit, and I'm going to push. GitHub is going to look at the code and it's going to go, hey, the last time you pulled the code, there was only 1,000. You have an extra 47 lines that doesn't really match up to what the 33 extra lines I have now are. It doesn't make sense. I don't know what to do. So this is when developer communication, typically via Slack, or yo, what are you doing? You want to talk about this commit real quick? You just like hang out. You're like right there next to the person, and you go, cool. Let me take a look at your 33, and let's look at my 47, and that's the merge conflict. It's nothing to be scared about, but at the same time, if you can avoid it, it's probably better to avoid it. But if it happens, don't be like, oh snap, there's a conflict, and then just like run away. But that's basically what's happening. How do we feel about when a merge conflict will happen? Cool. Then you just go, hey, do you want to keep all 33? You'd be like, oh no, it's trash. Let's keep all 47 of yours. Then you would just delete the 33, merge in the 47, and now your file on GitHub is how many lines of code? If we trashed all of this and kept only this on GitHub, how many lines of code will we have? 1,047, right? So GitHub has 1,047. Me as the jabroni has 1,047 because I wrote the code. On your local computer, how many lines of code do you have? You will now have to remake simple. And that's how the whole thing works. I feel like I had you up until that so that everyone is on the same page. And you have to do it often. You will rebase probably several times a day.
You're pulling this branch or pulling the master?
You're pulling,
Master.
the branch is different because that's version control, but this is just the concept behind GitHub.
Okay.
Right? Ideally, in this example, everyone's just on master right now. This is just how GitHub is working. When it gets complicated is when you start branching. So if I'm on a branch and you're on a branch and we both push the code, it's totally fine because the branches don't interact with each other. When you try to pull both branches into master, that's when it's all like, oh, hey, this is different now. And so that's basically GitHub pushing and pulling, and that's all it is. Except instead of 2 computers, right? Like how many engineers do you think are Facebook? 3? Come on now, right? The idea is that you're gonna have like 30 of these jabronis. I don't know, I just recently watched something that said jabroni and I can't stop. There's like 30 smart devs. They're all pushing and pulling at different times. That's when it could get somewhat difficult to manage, and then you will need a technical project manager. You'll have to really communicate about when to pull, when to rebase, when to push. Right? That's when you have weekly sync meetings. That's what devs meetings are about in terms of like, hey, listen, both of you built this. It's in the same file. What do you want to do with it? And then you just kind of like work through that, and it's okay.
Question. So if, let's say, the first one has 1033 code, the second one person has 1047 code, and they're both working on the separate branch. When they push up to their branch, essentially the master branch still has 1000 code.
Correct.
So nothing has changed.
Nothing has changed.
Your branch, this first branch has 1033, the second branch is 1047. As long as you're not pushing to the master, you're essentially just changing your branch of file.
Your version of it, that's exactly correct,
And
yes.
At the end, when you're presenting your project, you can then, before you present, you can push it all to master, make sure there's no conflict, and then present that master branch.
Yes, so what Johan is saying is master is always the perfect working one. Right? So what you should have is something called like a development branch that everyone kind of merges and messes with. You test that. If that's good, new master. So master is like kind of only bad boys push to master. But yeah, you should be branching off that. You can have branches off branches, but it does get complicated. But this is the whole thing. This is what's happening.
So how should like me and my partner be doing this like for this week? Should we like every day be like merging, like going to the master branch and figuring out what belongs in the master branch for today, or should it just happen at one time at the end of the project?
Okay, Johan definitely, like, you touched on this. And the idea is there's a way to do it in production that I think makes a lot of sense, that is a bit too much at the moment. Right? I believe your guidance was partner.
What I would do if I were you guys is still have your master branch, just untouched, but whenever you're gonna merge your stuff, just merge yours and then merge into master once everything is working, then have your partner merge theirs into master too, and then you guys are good. Don't merge into don't have like a development branch and like both of you guys try to merge to development and then try to merge to master. Just think about master as like your development branch for now. So you guys can still both have your individual branches, but I would make your, I would push every day at the end of the day or whatever feature is done, say, hey, I'm gonna push my code up, then you're gonna merge the master branch into yours. That's the key. You gotta merge the master branch into yours. Once you do that and you don't have any issues, you can push your branch up, and then you can merge from GitHub. You want to open up a pull request, okay? And then once you open up that pull request, you can just, whether it's yourself, you guys don't protect it, or whether it's your partner, if it's a review, and you can just hit merge, and it should work out fine if you merge from master into yours, because nobody else had touched it. It's especially just two of you.
Yep.
Then after that, if she goes and she wants to make some changes, which she's gonna do, she's gotta pull master down now, merge master into her branch. If there is a merge conflict, it's going to happen on her computer, not when you're pushing up to GitHub. Then you got to resolve the merge conflict on your computer, and then you got to push that new code down, back up, over the pull request, bam, you're done. The first couple of times you guys want to go over it with me too. I know repetition doing it to let it really sink in.
Yeah. So for the recording, it's you just make one branch each, push to that branch, and then on GitHub, you create a pull request against master and then resolve the conflicts. Cool. You'll learn about Git in production when you get to production. It's not that big of a difference. But your commit messages should be good because there are like an actual log on your website. And I know for a fact that sometimes when you're like messing around in the schoolhouse and then you're like, hey, why don't you check out this sweet portfolio piece? And your commit said, finally done. It's not a good look for you, you know what I'm saying? But commit messages, keep them professional. That's all. Cool. Yeah, any other questions?